Hi there, everyone. I'm Clifford Bates, and welcome to Messing Around on a Friday afternoon. Um, I have to apologize as this is not a live stream. Why? Because, um, honestly, today you see me better dressed. I have to go do this with the good tie on because I have to be someplace at a regular time. So I apologize. It's my university's departments. Start up their annual both graduation and slash what do you call convocation event. So I have to be there. I thought it was tomorrow. Honestly, I actually canceled something I was going to do tomorrow. But no. I was told today. It's today. Oh my! Life is crazy. So greetings, everyone. It's messing around. So this is going to be pre-recorded, not our normal live thing. So there's not going to be live any opportunity for live. Next week will be. I'm going to be doing my monthly live stream. Usually, like on Friday, I either do a book. My new Friday maybe thing is doing a book review, a book chat, Friday book chat. I think I may do that once a month, maybe not. Messing around is normal on a Friday, which I can sometimes, mostly they're live, but I can do that. And then the monthly chat is beginning. It should have happened today, honestly, but because I couldn't do a live stream, I'm not doing a monthly chat. I'll do it next week. Uh, um, what's what you're saying? Oh my God, you're not here today. We're not doing it. Why? Okay, I told you why. I think this. So we started the semester this week, the start of the semester, and it's been like the big class I'm doing. I'm doing Tocqueville. I'm doing a university wide general elective for non American Studies Center. We're doing Tocqueville's Democracy in America, which the course is called Democracy in America Then and Now. Where we mostly basically teaching readings Tocqueville's Democracy in America as this. I have 18 students. It's kind of nice. This is usually the rule is usually more than you have to have more than 5 or 6, um, and the limit is 20 for these small elective rooms. So I'm kind of happy that I got what I got. Lost some and got some. The other course I'm doing this semester for Washington University's American Studies Department is the American Constitution course. I got lot. Usually, this course usually fills, and this year not that many. Where we usually go over the American Constitution line by line by line, and the amendments as well, and we look at the origins, where these ideas came from, where these things come from. It is kind of looking at the constitutional structure and then looking at the thing. This is a course I teach biannually, at least once every 2 years. And then usually on the opposite side of it, I will teach the course on the ratification and the course on the convention itself, a history of horticulture, where we look at that. So this time it's doing we're looking at the text of the Constitution as the basis of American political system, as law, and the things, and then the foundation of rights. The other course I'm doing a thing on liberty and consent, which is a little bit of Tocqueville. It's basically an undergraduate. It's a graduate level pro seminar. It's called a pro seminar, research pro seminar, where we're focusing on the history of political thought. Not political thought, but mostly modern political thought. I focused mostly on. We're going to be doing next week. We're going to be looking at Thomas Paine's Common Sense as a kind of a general statement of concepts of liberty. The theme is liberty, consent in American political thought, and we're looking at the classics, and then we're going to be looking at Locke. And in fact, this course is weird. I'm going to be having them read 3 books at the same time. I originally did that, but I might cancel that. I'm going to give more flexibility. I think the doing it the way that I originally did it was kind of stupid, and I'm going to kind of change it up a little bit because of that. I've been thinking about that. The original way I did it was going to be that way, so we read all 3 at the same time. But I think when I did it last time, it was mostly online, and I didn't think that do it didn't go as well as I hoped, and now this time I'm going to do it. I think I'm going to change it, and it's going to be more open in that sense. So I'm going to be rethinking it because this is a pro seminar research person, and the goal there is to do a research paper for them, to do a research project, MA level research project, and teach them how to properly do it into his critical ideas. What else? And the other course is a BA pro seminar where students start their theses. So that's my workload for the semester. Except for my Norwich University stuff that I'm doing again. We're in the fifth week there, and I'm a little frustrated because they're not as active this week. I'm kind of like, some of them have to turn in their, one group is going to have to turn in their proposal for their paper, and I'm kind of a little nervous about some of them in that sense. And then the other one is that. Now, writing, I've not done anything this week. I've been kind of, I'm crossing my finger. Oh, I haven't done my job yet. I need to write a review. I haven't done it. Bad boy, bad boy. I have a week, 2 more weeks more, and I think I'll get it done. I might do it Saturday this weekend. This weekend, I probably will write my review. It's not. It's a positive review, so I don't know. I think I waited as long as I did. I've been waiting a week and a half. Um, just if I wrote too quickly, what my acceptance of. I read the article, and if I wrote too quickly, they might dismiss my recommendation. So I I've been rereading it and rereading it, and so that's what I've been doing. So and then I have to do my own paper. I have an article. I have two, three articles ready. I need to work on some more. One on force and consent, one on small things, and one on something else. One on basically uh, changes in the regime, American regime in that sense, that I've kind of got frustrated on. I need to go work on it a little bit to send it to a journal for points. I need points, points, points. So I've not been doing that. Now the focus of today's talk. What is it? I know I did last time. I did gave a book chat. We did academic Angel's Parvini, and I think I made a mistake. I didn't put AA immediately in the hashtags. I had to go back and edit it this week to do editing, make sure that Parvini and that was in it because I didn't do it. It hasn't got the kind of same traction as my other review did. So I was kind of a little like this, and I hope uh, mm, some people noticed it and mentioned it. I'm not sure. One of what was so interesting in the recording of my last recording on the irrationalist on the chapter 4 of this, which will be airing on next Thursday, um, uh, where he where Schmidt talks about Sorel in his reflection on violence, about the irrationalist forces, what about violence, and it was there that I thought, my God, this is the thing. So that this Schmidt on Sorel and how Sorel and the right wing, Don Kotos and Sorel and Podun and Bakhtin, this irrational, this thing about the masses being the energy force of both nationalist and also socialist things that Sorel really kind of hits on, is a kind of response to both this and this in that sense. In the sense that I think that is kind of an interesting argument that Schmidt highlights about this irrationalist aspect. Um, Now I say that is because I think now this is my big problem with I think the black pill. Why the black pill isn't a good thing? Because it's too easy. It's a cop out. It's a kind of despair. Even things when they're bad, you can still kind of you can try to get the best opportunity out of it. Um, um, And I think there's always a chance to opportunity creates. Okay, yes, in chaos, yes, in the crisis, there is opportunity, and therefore you take advantage of the opportunities you get. The political actor must always take care of looking at what's available and take looking for the opportunity. That's something that good old Nicola, where's my ugly copy of the Prince, right? Um, the great captains of history always look for the occasion. It's that their virtue may be great. Virtue is great. Virtue, character, your intelligence, your wisdom, your character, great. But if there's no occasion for you to actualize them, then it's in vain. Okay, it's the combination of what Machiavelli says about virtue, and occasion together. So that's been kind of a thing. And dealing with Machiavelli, um, I got this like last week, a week before, it came finally in. It's Harvey Mansfield's last book. This is one of we should talk about my last week to talk about what I'm reading and things like this. I'll talk about this. I think Harvey's now about in his 90s. He's turned 90. I don't think he's going to have another book. I don't think there's another book. I think this is will be Harvey's last book. This is not merely a collection of essays, even though it is kind of a collection of essays. He has two parts. It deals with Machiavelli's enterprises in the world and Machiavelli's fortune, right? And the fortuna. And the fortuna is divided in his book chapter on. I think the Leonardo Bernai thing was previous done before, but it's expanded and changed on it. Leonardo Bernai and Machiavelli on the civic humanism. This is a response to the Cambridge School and this Hans Byron's approach that was kind of in the early 60s and 70s. This idea of the civic humanism Machiavelli, and this is kind of a response to the so-called Cambridge School of Skinner Pocock, right? In that sense. Then he has his two chapters. Uh, Tocqueville's Montesquieu and Machiavelli. It was very important chapters, a very big thing on Montesquieu in that sense, where he talks about Montesquieu and Montesquieu's relationship to Machiavelli, which I think people have been really interested in. And then last is Tocqueville's Machiavellianism, which something it was an article. He published an article on that. I think it was introduced. It was part of his introduction to the Tocqueville volume. Not the Tocqueville volume. He and his second wife, who died of cancer, uh, Deborah Winthrop. Translated, Democracy in America in the early 1990s, 2000s came out. I mean, I have it right here. I have a couple copies, hardback, someplace up there, and I use that in school. Only reason why I joke about this, I say, I'll just show this, get this for you right now, so you can see what I'm talking about. My choice is between this big book or this book. I prefer this book, smaller, carries. This is a newer translation. Goldhammer, who's a good translator of. Is he better than Mansfield? No. Yeah, no, as a scholar of France, Goldhammer is better than Mansfield. Sorry. Delba, not maybe. Delba is good in languages. Delba was good in Greek, and as a now Harvey's Machiavelli is decent. Italian is cutting edge. His French is good enough, and this is like this. It's like that. But Goldhammer is a master translator in French. And although sometimes I disagree with Goldhammer's translation of Montesquieu is like this. But why about this? Let's go back to Harvey's book. Harvey's chapter on Tocqueville's Machiavellian. I think it was published, if not there, it was published a chapter in the the little Oxford book on Tocqueville that Harvey put together. So this is a very interesting book. The book on Machiavelli's enterprise deals with Machiavelli's succession problem. The title is The Effectual Truth. This is a great aspect of this. This is that big theme. Um, the succession problem, how to succeed, and the Machiavelli's world, and Strauss on the prince, and then the cuckold in Machiavelli's Mandragora. Again, this is another aspect. Harvey gave one or two chapters on Mandragora. He gave a paper back in the early 80s on Mandragora that was even talked about. It was handed around, passed around. It wasn't really published anywhere. Then it got published in one volume. I think it got. He gave another aspect of it. So there was, I think it was Vicky Sullivan did a book on collected essays on Machiavelli's comedies, and I think the Mandragora piece may have been published there. Um, so this is something Harvey's book about on this is it's just going to be a great. It's a good read. His chapter on Montesquieu is going to it is kind of I think there is the Montesquieu, and Montesquieu is clearly more in line with Machiavelli than he is with Hobbes. Even though he still accepts some aspects of Hobbes a lot, he rejects a lot more of them. In his constitutional structure, he doesn't he kind of follows Machiavelli, but goes deeper with despotism. Okay, so it's not just princes and republics; it's monarchies, republics, and despotisms. Right? That's that famous three constitutions. And in such a way, there is this following the path of Machiavelli to a great degree, particularly his position on Rome and things like that. Um, I mentioned this when I was talking. I mentioned this last week. I mentioned this. It came just at the beginning of last week, beginning at the middle of last week, as I was doing the review of Paulini's Prophet of Dooms. This is Peter Turchin's book, End Times. This, in many ways, is the popular version of summarizing his argument. It's more kind of like he gives example. He gives people. It has three parts with an appendix. The first part is the cleodynamics of which is his argument about history and the connection of it's not psychohistory. No, everyone is reaching foundation. Watching Apple's Foundation series and rediscovering Asimov because of it, and as Isaac Asimov's famous psychohistory, which this idea of this kind of quantitative behavioral mathematical model of history, being able to predict large scale history. Well, psychodynamics was kind of again this idea that there's cycles in time. Turchin was looking for he was primarily trained as an ecologist in this sense, and brought a biological models to social behavior. And following from what the scholar uh, uh, Priram Sokorin, which uh, 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 Parvini talks about in Prophet of Doom, another Russian immigrant who came to America in the 1920s, who saw cycles, the cycle of cyclical history, against the traditional progressive idea of linear history, progress, right? The progression of human historical progress, and that this I always forget his name, Sokorin, which I remember reading Sokorin long ago. And when I studied in the 80s, when I was first studying 80s, when I did a lot of more sociology in political, because I was just influenced by Robert Nisbet. Um, and so I discovered I was amazing. I didn't realize when I was younger. I might have but he was starting up and he was starting his program in the 90s, and I was already in my doctoral program. We didn't hear about him. I heard about him for the first time in 2006, 2007, when he published something in the Economist, and I said, "Oh, this is interesting. This is more historical. This is not Howe and Strauss, which I knew." And I always had the problem with Howe and Strauss in the sense that my problem with Howe and Strauss was that his it was too American centric, and we yes under globalism America globalizes. So what's true about this? In other words, the discussion of the fourth turning is not global; it's American. Okay, that's not the Strauss Howe book is not about real global history. It's about generational historical events within a history of a people. So that there was that we in fact this is an American centric Strauss Howe's he in the one of the earlier books, I think the fourth turning, I think maybe fourth turning, or that they try to expand it back into the British history in that sense, but then British history would have a separate dynamic, completely separate dynamic on this. Every nation will have a separate dynamic. Yes, modern technology globalizes history and creates intergenerate like through TikTok and things like this. Yes, generations are younger generations have more in common with each other. First Facebook, and then Instagram, and then that we have that we have maybe even through YouTube, we have a more global. We have through those social media things that transcend national boundaries, even though some nations try to prevent it, manipulate it. But this doesn't create a new humanity. This creates a problem. Only creates a group of people. The group of people who are using those technologies cross over and have a different trajectory than those who don't. Okay, therefore you get a divide between this is what I forget the guy's name. Somewheres and everywheres a problem, right? There's people whose identity is most localized within their local people, population, their place, and, like this, and then other people who either because of their employment or their lifestyle or their activity or have they could go anywhere. Their ability to do what they do and shares, and therefore this creates a divide, an interest divide in that sense. Well, but Turchin, like this, the first part about climax of power is very interesting. He explains his model, right? Elites, and his basically argument of his, and this comes with his book on crisis. He doesn't list his book. Yeah, he does. His book is The Complex of Population Dynamics. That's a very good book about the dynamics of population. His then Why Historical Dynamics book, which is Why States Rise and Fall. And this is where he gets his, this is where he presents his hypothesis of regimes fall, states fall when there's the elite overproduction, when there's too many elites and they start fighting with each other for power and dominance, and then therefore that leads to stability and then collapse. Right? His famous War and Peace and War, Rise and Fall of Empires follows the historical dynamics cycles. Then his Secular Cycles book. Again, this is that. And then the Uber Society, how 10,000 years of war made humans the greatest cooperators on Earth. Okay, this is a very aspect of the book. And then Age of Discord, right? The structural demographic analysis of American history. This is where in that book, and that was a controversial book because it wasn't, because he basically explaining that there's going to be not progress and not this, but maybe civil strife. It was published in 2012, I think. He was one of the people who predicted the events. The argument was he was going to. He kind of saw that there was going to be a crisis, an immediate crisis that was going to. But I would have thought it was already happened with the Tea Party and things like that. And they didn't understand that 2016 of this reaction, this populist reaction, global nationalist and populist reaction that emerged of doing that. Now, again, this book is strange because the second part is drivers of instability. He has one, two, three, four chapters there. The peasants are revolting about the lower classes and like this. The revolutionary troops, the true believers, and who's going to be, the young university, the ruling class about the of the thing, and then why is America plutocracy? And each one of these chapters, he basically brings an individual. He individually. This is why it's interesting. This book kind of is less. This book is made for a more general audience than his other works, in the sense, because his other works always have this more historical framework, and it goes like you see the structures. He's coming upon it more like as a kind of attempt to just persuade other people. I mean, most of his works is an attempt to persuade. Turchin is basically trying to persuade other historians that there are cycles. This is this is a big debate about whether there's cycles in history or not. Thucydides argued there were cycles. The Greek historians tend to argue for cycles. The modern historians tend to argue for linear progress, right? The modern world and Christian modern world. And this is something we discussed in the video about last week's book chat about Marvini's book. Well, this book is very good in that sense that it talks about what he calls the end times, using this Christian, the end times is a reference in Christianity of the time just before the apocalypse, right? The second coming of Christ, right? The end times is the historical point where the crisis and social crisis are such that it's the end of history, right? This is the consumption of time, the apocalyptic moment of aspects of this. Um, so that was that one thing. Now, the other book, it just came today. Everyone's talking about it. This is the book everyone's talking about among um, uh, it came. I ordered it. It came actually one day because why? Because because it's an Amazon book. I think it's being published through Amazon, and therefore it's published locally. It was published in Wrocław, and hence I got it quickly. I think maybe even one day after I ordered it. Because I finally ordered. I had some money. I had a little bit of money in my little thing. I said, I want to buy it. Because everyone talking about it, I knew it. I had the UMI version of it, University of Michigan indexes about dissertations. I know I had a copy of the dissertation originally. He kind of edits it here, and it's not the same as dissertation. It's a little different. It's not completely different, but it is enough different that I haven't read it. It's going to be. I think this is going to be. Well, I mean, it's. We all know who this is. Costin Amiro. He got his degree and PhD at Yale. It's under Steve Smith. I think this is who I think it is. I met him at Philadelphia. He introduced himself to me. I think Philadelphia 2008. I think it was Philadelphia 2000 or 2010, 2008 or 2010. I don't remember which. He introduced himself to me. I was there. I was going. This is one of the times I was able to go to convention. I was giving my papers. I was doing some paper on this, and he knew who I was through the Strauss list. The time of my activity on the then it was Yahoo Group. By this time, it was Yahoo Group. It was Lance Fletcher's famous Strauss list. I was on the Strauss list in the early '90s when it was on a normal listserv. Then it went to he moved it from his private listserv to a network thing that was bought out by Google, and then Google, eventually, just about 2 3 years ago, Google killed not Google, sorry, Yahoo bought it out. I was in Yahoo groups for a long time, and then finally Yahoo groups killed it about 2 years ago. I think 2 3 years ago. The Leo Strauss Group was a very, and I think you can still access the archives of the Strauss Group. Just look up Lance Fletcher, Leo Strauss listserv, and you can still find the old archives of the thing. If the website has not collapsed, Lance Fletcher's wife was a judge, and that she went to work back to Georgia, not American Georgia, but post-Soviet Georgia, like in 2006, 2003. I mean, I came to Poland. I came to Europe, Central Europe '99, and he came like 2 or 3 years later. Into his, he was an older guy. He was a clam, and he was a student. Lance Fletcher was a Bloom student, or I think wrote his dissertation on Plato under Bloom and Betterdetti. Um, he was always hanging out with Betterdetti in New York City. Was involved in internet technologies and banking. I think that's something made money. And what he created the Leo Strauss listserv and his idea of slow reading. Right. Well, I know I was very active in there, controversial in that there, and I was kind of, because I was a paleocon. I was in that. I never liked the term paleoconservative. I thought it was I thought it was kind of a self. It was an insult. It was kind of a stupid argument. I'm still not ever been. I've never. At the time I thought it was a kind of like the stupid party idea. Don't embrace what your enemy wants you to call you. This idea we're old fashioned the paleocons. I sympathize. I preferred my professor, my real mentor, Mel Bradford, always was kind of he was part of those people, but Mel always called himself a reactionary or a man of the right, and he kind of like hung out. He died about '93, so Mel dying in '93 at the time, just before the kind of this the, as this the paleocon moment arised. The real height of paleocon was, it was '92's the 1991, '92, the rise of challenge to Bush by Pat Buchanan, that then led to the um, no, Ross Perot. Um, Ben Buchanan ran in '96, and then the whole neoconservative right and the establishment went after him and tried to destroy him. I was sympathetic to him in '96. I was kind of even sympathetic towards him in '91. I disagreed with him about Iraq. Um, I mean, I agreed with him on Iraq. The first time, '91, I kind of agreed with him. I didn't think it was worth it. It was not really our interest to do this. It was our mistake, but I had sympathy towards that. But my sympathy ended, and also my kind of reservation about even doing the Balkans. But that ended when I came to this part of the world and saw how fucked up the Europeans were. Germany was basically a Russian whore, still is a Russian whore. Can't be trusted to do anything that's safe, good for the, you know, the Germans are just either, they're either completely selfish, navel gazing children wanting more and more goodies, or the very uber wealthy who are see their whole economic future tied with Russia. So you have this problem with Germany that therefore it didn't really do. No, there was no, in the French themselves. Even the French have a problem with this because the French leadership has a European vision, but their European vision is a overly centrist vision, bureaucratic centrism that no one else in Europe really wants. Um, and therefore, this German-French alliance shapes this. Now, why am I talking about this? Because I think I met him in 1990, not 90, 2010, maybe 2000. I think 2008, 2010. Um, at the Northeastern Political Science Association meeting, we introduced, and we talked about things. Like he asked me, because I was paleoconservative. I was like one of these guys. These guys, how could how can you hang out these Straussians, all the Straussian teachers at universities like Yale and like this, are liberals? He was like very negative about this. And I sympathized. I said, yeah, they are. Yeah. Strauss isn't liberal as they are. and the other, and the more the very Jewish liberals in the sense. The J word. Oh, you can't say that. Well, he was, if I remember correctly, Romanian, and coming from the communist world and communist reality, and understood that he had no illusions of liberalism in this sense, and therefore he saw that in me as well. But and then I think he became famous. He became famous not by going academia, but well, he was never going to get in academia after writing this dissertation. Like I could get in academia because of my Polish friends always joke that you're a political exile here, huh? They joke about that to me about that. Academic. I'm a political refugee from American academia, right? Um, Writing this dissertation, the version of this dissertation, um, Steve Smith was never going to openly advocate him out getting a job anywhere. Because Steve Smith looks out for Steve Smith. I know Steve. Steve is self-serving. He wants to be liked by the New York Review of Books. He likes to be. He took great pride at being able to write book reviews for the New Republic. He's like he's one of these New York Jewish intellectuals who thinks himself a liberal, right? He has all the right liberal opinions. He virtue signals. Now, it tries to be reasonable about this, but this was too much. And I can see that in many ways, and we all know. I don't want to basically say that he's Bronze Age pervert, but everyone's telling me he's Bronze Age pervert. And I said when people told me, showed me this book, about saying this is Bronze Age publishing dissertation because they haven't talked about it. I really couldn't. I tried read. I bought the ebook of Bronze Age Pervert. When Michael Anton mentioned it and people mentioning it, the same thing with Moberg. I can't read. I bought the ebooks of Moberg and I tried reading them, and like it's so bad. I mean, I have a writing problem. I have dyslexia. Okay, um, I have to work on my writing. Okay, I know this. I know this. It's always been a problem of this, and that's why I don't produce as much as I should because I need to have someone look at it, make sure I'm not making dumb errors that I make because of my my dyslexia in that sense. But when I read this, I mean, no, this book is he's a great book, fantastic. But the problem with the old Malmberg thing, and even Bronze Age, too Nietzschean, and this kind of I can agree with the analysis, but not the solution. So this is I'm going to enjoy reading this book. I think in that sense because it's going to be going to Plato. It's going to be spending a $10 in Plato. Um, I think this is going to be a very interesting read. I only wish he spent time and make an index, no index. This is like a dissertation in that sense. I wonder. It doesn't. On my first glance of it, it looked different than this dissertation. Maybe it may be the dissertation just published in that. Um, uh, I'm just not doing it. The other book that came was this, and this is a Doug Stokes book. Doug Stokes, he's basically a British historian. Let me get the. Yeah, he is not a big radical guy. He's director of strategy and security at the Institute of University of Exeter, a fellow of, in the words of Free Speech Union. He's kind of what we call this part of this new thing. He's written for Daily Telegraph Times, The Critic, um, um, and what his book here is. I mean, therefore, he's part of what I call the new emerging right, or the new in England in that sense. And I really didn't. I knew some of the stuff on the Critic. I read it before, but this is a very good book in that sense. It talks about the decolonial, the this whole thing that's in the English world, that arguing that the colonialism is the horriblest thing in the world, and we have to be anti-colonial. Anti-colonial is anti-colonial. a left wing modernist anti colonial movement. And he basically looks at this development of these theories, the decolonizers, so called decolonizers, in the British University, and that and their attitudes against this. Against so this is a book against the anti-colonial movements in that sense, right? Um, this is a very interesting book. When I read it, it was like this, trying to reclaim history. It's about the destruction of statues, the association of empire with slavery in that sense, and the sins of slavery and the sins of things like this. And it's a very powerful condemnation of a what happened with this a kind of neo-Marxist reproach and grabbing and the idea of struggling it, moving it from taking it. And again, it's tied with American, I, the progressive left and the progressive left. When class didn't work, as the class no longer became a mechanism by which socialist strike would not work anymore. Race became it. They moved towards race and used race as the basis to create the revolutionary mass that would bring the transformative end of the bourgeoisie, the bourgeois liberal model, and the bourgeois liberal state, destroy it. That class wasn't going to work. Class didn't work. The class was no longer going to be the revolutionary vanguard. Race was going to be used as a, and that following from Black Lives Matter, the George Floyd situation, this the power of the idea of slavery and the racial or whiteness, white supremacy, because of whiteness, and the legacy of empire and colonialism. There was a very good book by Louis Fleur in the 1980s, mid 80s. Louis Fleur, the anti against the anti. It's called the Anti-Imperialist Mind. A very powerful book that I remember reading this. And Louis Fleur says not all empire. The British. Not empires are the same. There's positive empires and destructive empires. The Roman Empire left lasting traditions that then built on future things. The Inca Empire didn't. The Aztec Empire didn't. The Egyptians really didn't. And most empires, it's two types. There's kind of oppressive empires that are there to oppress and destroy, and then there's empires that produce benefit for the people that they and actually leave lasting institutional frameworks after the empire collapses, by which then the survivors post empire and the people post empire build their own political, take the remnants of the empire and build something from it. You can say, therefore, this idea of empire does, and therefore you look at 19th century imperialism. You have different trends. You have the Congo is still messed because the Belgians did it. Anywhere the Germans and the French went, usually things are left crappy. You would live something British went there. It's lasting and developing. It's the healthier part. Okay, so you have this idea that the vibrant part of Africa happens to be where the British Empire came. If it wasn't for the British Empire, all of Africa would still be backwards to a great degree. That's the dirty little secret about this. In fact, the British Empire, if you look at the comparative aspect of the British Empire and there's another book, I don't think it was Stokes or someone else who wrote that article, and they go, oh my God, how dare you do it? And they pulled this article. I want to find that. I want to go find that piece. I know I heard about it, and I was like saying, well, where's that? Where is it? I like to. That would be an interest. I don't think it is Stokes. But Stokes' book here is Decolonialism is a very important book for the sake purposes of attacking the so-called and particularly in English context, in the British context, but also in America as well. This idea of using race and slavery in the past and the empire, this colonialization. Sorry, I hate to say it, everything's colonizing. What do you mean by that? Europe is a colony. Hey, Western Europe was colonized by the Romans. Spain was first colonized by the southern Spain and the northern parts, and much of Sicily was colonized by the Greeks, Sparta, and Sparta, mostly the Spartan Dorians for the great degree. Maybe some Ionians went there as well, but mostly Dorians. So the Greek cities were colonized all through the Mediterranean. Ooh, then the Phoenicians colonized Carthage. Phoenicians. Then there was that little thing, Roman Empire. Rome, most of North Africa, conquer Egypt, right? Colonize them. Then what else does it colonize? Spain, France, much of modern France, northern into France, a little bit of Germany, the Rhine, from the Rhine, a little west of the Rhine. Um, then the west of, down to the Danube, all the way down to the Asia Minor, right? That the Roman Empire. And then what happened? Roman Empire collapsed. Post-colonial. Then the Franks invade. Remember, it's always fun to remember France. Uh, the real people of the region, the southern thing is Gallic, Gauls, right? The Gauls are French, right? But it's not Galatia, Galakia. It's it's Frankreich, France. Okay. Um, this is the little dirty aspect of it. The the side secret aspect of all colonies. Um, America is colonized. America is the first post-colonial empire. United States is the first post-colonial superpower. Remember that. So a lot of cases, in fact, but the indigenous people of Americas aren't really from there. I hate to say it, these so-called American and Indians, or all the Indian people, are really Asians who I think it's around 50,000, maybe 60,000 years ago, maybe went down, went over from Asia during an ice age over into the Americas. There, the only place where there's ever any indigenous population might be, in that true sense, is Africa and Australia. What happened? Something happened. Somehow during plate tectonic shift, something happened. How did the Aboriginals of Australia and New Zealand, this seems to be a question of how did they get there? Did they transfer? Did they go by sea, or there were that a population there before plate tectonics happened? Something happened. We don't. I mean, this is a whole question about this. This is things to studies. So the history of who's what and who's post-colonial and what's this is a complicated question. That's why, therefore, this Stokes books is a very interesting, powerful read. And last of all, my reads are was going to be Jonathan Sumption's book, Laws in the Time of Crisis. Jonathan Sumption was a very famous medieval historian. I mean, he's famous for the study of the Hundred Years' War. His multi-volume, I think it's 4 or 5 volume, set on the Hundred-Year War. Did this. He wrote a book about Henry III, and I think even Edward III. I remember correctly. He was gives us a fantastic um, understanding of the Hundred Years' War and what the forces that led to it and the outcome of it and what happened to it. Maybe even to the War of the Roses. I remember an aspect of this, and that he wrote lots and lots of historian. He was a historian, but he was also a lawyer. Okay, in fact, many ways. He reminds me of, where is my book? It's hiding someplace. Um, Oh, come on! He reminds me of my brain is working. My brain is not working. Why is it doing this? It's Maitland. Yes, Maitland, the great Maitland, who was a historian and a lawyer, mostly lawyer, and then later becomes a very important aspect of history of law. So, I mean, again, this is a difference. This is those of you who've seen me before knows that I know I like Starkey, David Starkey's work on history and the Tudor period. More to this is again difference. Starkey is more strictly stuck. His public his historical thing was tied to the English monarchy and also particularly to the Tudor monarchy. Sumpson was very much well known for his work on the Hundred Year Wars and the Hundred Year Wars and the development of this of the monarchy before to pre-tutorial. But Sumpson was also a lawyer, and he became a judge, and then he became on the judge of the Supreme Court, the the British Supreme Court, that's the court that Tony Blair made, right? And he was a judge until 2016, I think it was 2000. I forget what year he was left the judge. He was like you have to remember all law judges like this, and he wrote two books about after his thing. He wrote the I forget the first book about law. I'm going to do something I don't like doing. Um, um, going to check something. Now, Jonathan Sumption, this is kind of in the news this week, last couple weeks, is because of his. Yeah, because of. Okay, go back here. Where is this? Hi there. Sorry, I had checked something. This is his latest book. It's 2000. Oh yeah, there it is. Divide. It came out in paperback edition as 2020. I think it was published at 2020 hardback as well. Yeah, 2022 paperbacks were last year. It came out. It is divided into things: history of modern world, right? He does this, and then law, conceptions and misconceptions. The Constitution is the third part of the things. These are basically speeches and things he's given over time, put together in this volume about the question of what law. It's a question of law. His other book that I remember from 2020, which was the BBC lecture series that was given, Trials of the State, where he talks about the idea. I always have the problem with that. You know, I read something or something, and when I do something too quickly, hold on. I want to talk about Trials of the State. Trials of the State. Hold on, let me go. It was published in 1919, just before COVID. It was um, basically the lectures, BBC Reith lecture series, right? Published in the book form, right? This is why it was a short book. Um, he's basically arguing about the dangers of judicial power. That the judicial law has undermined legislation and the legislative and political process in a sense, and that in political realms, the court it should be the political legislative aspect should be deciding these questions, not the courts. And in many ways, he's repeating the argument that many of my Robert Bork made in the 1990s and early thousands. Robert Bork, the American jurisprudence judge himself, famously for his book Slouching to Gomorrah, but the book about the misrule of law. And also my grad, my he was 2 years older than me. 2 years. He was a couple years older than me. He got his dissertation about 2 years older. He has defended my first year at my graduate studies was the year he defended his PhD, which became a book in early '90s called not the mid '90s, I think it was called Against the Imperial Judiciary. Oh, Frank. Honestly, I don't want to say Michael. Um, I don't want to say Michael Frank. Imperial Judiciary. Um, it's a yeah, it is a Matthew Frank. He teaches. He works with. It's again. It was published, if I remember correctly, 1996. Yep, by University of Kansas Press. The Supreme Court versus the Sovereignty of the People. I mean, he was there. His dissertation. This was a dissertation that he wrote at Northern Illinois. Uh, uh, Matt Frank was arguing this in the '90s. He was teaching at a school in Virginia. At the time, he was teaching at a school where I forget what was the name of the school at the time. It's hard my thing it was Radford's University, in someplace in Virginia. And then eventually, Robbie George asked him to go to be part of. Um, um, there's a center at Yale that deals with natural law. Um, come on, Witherspoon Center Institute, the Witherspoon Institute, which has headquarters at Princeton, not Yale, Princeton. Robbie George at Princeton, tenured professor of philosophy and jurisprudence at Princeton, Catholic, and Matt Frank is a Catholic also in a sense. Um, Matt's position, he hasn't published more. I wish he had. But that book was a groundbreaking book. I think still deserves it. And basically, it is the argument both of the state under trial and also law in crisis. This overextension of judicial power. This is the danger. And this is the point of we have to remember. It's rule by judges is tyranny. Judges are not. It's not democratic, and it's not even just. Judges are appointed for life in the Anglo-American system because they're not making law; they're only enforcing the law. They're a magistrate who's there to settle disputes, is there to exercise the sovereign, represent the sovereign, there, not make the law, not replace the sovereign's will. The legislature is supposed to do that, the legislator actor, and therefore, in democratic governments, consent of the government rests on the popular control of the legislator. Right? This is, and that the only thing a judge does is basically enforce the law in that sense. And when there's disputes about law, defers to the legislative entity. In the English situation, there was no judicial review. Only really meant to look at junior judges to make sure they did the case right. There was no error in procedures or process error. It was to review what was done to make sure there was no violation of the law. It was never to underturn what the legislature. The judicial review never meant what became understood as judicial review by Justice Marshall at Marbury versus Madison, the right to overturn the act of the legislature if it contradicted the Constitution. Now, given in the English situation, is more it's this is even more absurd because the Constitution is merely whatever the legislature, the Parliament, and has enacted. The British Constitution is nothing more than all the statutes and the habits and customs of the the British people. Right? That there is no written constitution in the English model. There is a written constitution in the American approach. That's the deviation between British and the American. But no one meant that the judges should be doing. Now, the idea that okay, we're going to have a judge there. And this is a radical misreading of Montesquieu, who argued that, Montesquieu speaks of judicial power as being a very important thing, not for judges, that was because juries. that his defense of the English system was not its judicial supremacy, because it wasn't judicial supremacy. He was defend Montesquieu and spirit of the laws when he talks about England in that chapter in book 11, chapter 6. That weird chapter there, which talks about English and implies that it's the legal system, it's the laws, and that this is where justice is. This is where the regime where justice is involved, rights are variable, that the liberty is preserved. Why? Because the judiciary. Well, not judiciary in terms of the judges, but the jury system, the ad hoc character. That there's not a permanent interest. Judges are a permanent interest. Therefore, they don't determine life and death, right and wrong to say. Rather, the ad hoc body that decides was the Montesquieu's praising of this. And yes, that chapter also talks about division of powers, but that's the division of function. And the idea that judicial was overturning the legislative never would. I don't see that in Montesquieu at all in that sense. This is the argument that the judicial power. I mean, you can say, well, wait a minute. What about that famous case, the Coke case, Lord Coke? What is it? The case where the judges declare that. I remember. I wasn't planning on talk about this today, so I don't have it on the tip of my fingertips. Um, um, okay, the Bonham case. 1610. This is the famous case of, of the argument is this is an anti. The famous case is Thomas Bonham versus the column positions, or known as the Dr. Bonham's case, or simply the Bonham's case, decided in 1610 by the Court of Common Pleas of England under Sir Edward Coke, the Chief Justice. And it was ruled that Dr. Bonham had been wrongly imprisoned by the College of Physicians for practicing medicine without license. And therefore, the argument, Dr. Bonham's attorney has argued that his imprisonment was reserved for malpractice, not illicit practice, Coke agreeing with the majority opinion. The case is notable because Coke argued that the decision's rationale that in many cases the common law will control acts of parliament, and the act of parliament in question being the College of Physician Act of 1553, which gave the college the right to imprison, meaning the meaning of the phrase had been disputed for the years, both interpretation. Coke intended this kind of judicial review that would no later. That the question is, did he intend this to be a idea that the judges can do this? Now, his argument was that the common law, the parliaments must signify under the common law. The Coke decision is really a radical decision in this sense. Coke's and I think this is because what was happening in the time of the Stuart monarchies, particularly Charles, the British courts, were increasingly the king was using the courts to get his way and bypass parliament, because the king promotes the judges, and the judges were usually kingsmen, and therefore they ended up promoting the policies in ways to bypass what was the custom of the common laws. So what I think in many ways Coke did is he championed the common law counter a decision of a judge, or even an act of parliament. In other words, a parliament who passes a new law that contravenes the common law in that sense would be, in other words, idea that a law that is badly made, regardless who makes it, is not just. Unjust law is not law in that sense, right? This is perception, if you will. And the common law is more binding than even the parliament, the argument was, in Coke's view, in that sense. I think in this way, Coke, to understand this, Coke plays a very important role. Now, we have to understand Coke's great enemy was always Bacon. And Bacon's best student, Hobbes, follow Bacon attacking Coke. Okay, Coke and Bacon are the two alternatives conceptions. One's for one which Bacon leads to Hobbes and this idea that law is nothing but what the king or the parliament says it is, positivist law, right? Whereas that no, that the common law is laws of custom, times, and tradition. That law comes from this process that has been shaped over time that preserves our liberty. This tension between the common law and the positive law, and that therefore it is from the American idea from Marshall. Marshall's looking at Koch's decision as an attempt to do something, but then that was never really done. That's the whole argument. And I think Matt Frank's book on this, and I think this is why Sumption is kind of following it, even though he doesn't really get his ideas from the same sources that I'm talking about here. Sumption is following this same path. That's why, but assumption is also more important now because it's post-COVID, right now. COVID insanity and the assumption became very critical of lockdowns and the violations of people's rights, and I think became more famous because of that. So that's the end of my reading things. I'm over my hour. I didn't mean to be this long on this thing, so I was going to stop here. I'll say goodbye to you. If you like it, like it, like it, like it. If you didn't like it, let's say that like this. Any comments or questions, please put it below. I will respond to them. Please put comments on things and topics you want me to cover or address, and maybe I'll do it on a Friday or maybe make a video for you guys. Um, Another thing is that you can do is if you're not subscribed, subscribe. Encourage others to subscribe. If you want to follow me on social media, the social media links below. My academic social media links are below. And if you want to help contribute to help me, you want to help me to do what I do here, and you can do so financially, you can become a member, Patreon, or Subscribe Star. Yeah, but you're doing it all for free anyway, so why should we do it now? It's free ride, right? It'll help. Every little bit helps. Another way you can do it is by buying one of my books. If you want to help me, you can go buy one of my books listed. The books are listed below. Well, take care. That's it. Have a good day. Again, I apologize for not being here for a live session, but I have other places to be and when times there. So take care. Bye bye. Have a good day.